Assalamu alaikum. I hope you have been well. Today I would like to supplement my polygamy video that you already made. So in the first one I talked about the Quranic context and the historical context. So it was kind of like an introduction. In this one I want it to be the supplement with the hadith and talking about the context in terms of the Prophet Muhammad's life, peace be upon him. So we know that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, left us the best example of living. Whatever he did, whatever he said, it's something that we should strive to emulate. And the thing I find so amusing in the discussions about polygamy is that it seems like the biggest sunnah in terms of relationships in the Prophet Muhammad's life, peace be upon him, is missing. I think it should always be mentioned when we're talking about the Prophet's relationships in his life, peace be upon him. And that is his marriage to Khadijah. He was married to her for 25 years, monogamously, right? So actually the longest relationship of his life with a woman is a monogamous one. And this is the sunnah, right? So in the discussions about polygamy, it's always like, oh, well, it's a sunnah. Well, it's the second one, though. And it's the lesser one. And there are so many reasons why it took place. And we'll go more into detail in those in a little bit. But I would just like to lay the foundation for our discussion about it with his marriage to Khadijah, peace be upon her. And he was so devastated after she died that we know it's called the year of sorrow in the Prophet Muhammad's life, peace be upon him. So here we have the ideal relationship in someone's life, a life partner, someone who would throw a cloak over him when he was doubting himself and scared, someone to support him, and he support her. So monogamy is also a sunnah. And in the Prophet's life, peace be upon him, he only participated in polygamy after her death, Khadijah's death, peace be upon her, and to take care of vulnerable women. It was never for his own self or his lust. Okay, so that is not a sunnah. If you are seeking a second marriage because you just want to try someone else out or what have you, then that's not a sunnah. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave the beautiful example of marrying the women in the society who were deemed unmarriable, right? Or to protect them, because marriage was the best way to do that in the society that he was from. So he married the orphans, the widows, the divorcees, the slaves to free them. And also he married to strengthen family ties and political ties, because again, he was becoming the religious and political leader that we know him to be today, right? So he had all sorts of reasons that he was seeking multiple marriages, but it wasn't for love or lust. And another sunnah in the Prophet's life, peace be upon him, is when Ali, peace be upon him, was seeking another wife, but he was already married to Fatima, the Prophet Muhammad's daughter, peace be upon her. And the Prophet Muhammad essentially forbade Ali from taking a second wife when he was married to Fatima, peace be upon her, because he said anything that hurts her by extension would hurt him. And so Ali respected that and did not take a second wife while Fatima was still alive, peace be upon her. And this is one person that the Prophet Muhammad loved the most, right? So that's also a beautiful sunnah and an example of, look, polygamy is not right for every woman, and it's not a must, okay? And this is something that I want to stress to the revert sisters especially, because I feel like in reading a lot of things that men try to take advantage of the revert sisters because they feel like they don't know their rights, or they're not as grounded in Islamic teachings. And so my biggest piece of advice for my revert sisters and for all Muslim women and men too. Our first command as Muslims is Iqra, or to read. We need to become familiar with all of the practices of Islam and why they were introduced and their context, and practice them properly. We can't just filter them through what we think. We have to go back to the sources and understand them through the sources. And so if you do that and you look at the Prophet's life, peace be upon him, you know that, first of all, monogamy looks like the preferred relationship, and polygamy is for specific reasons, and they are for the betterment of the women in the society. It was so important to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to stress the treatment of women that in his last sermon, he said, the best of you are the ones that are best to their women. And, we're not just talking about wives here, we're talking about mothers and daughters and aunts, and you should never want to put upon someone else what you wouldn't want put upon those dear women in your life. So we always have to have that God consciousness when we're trying to evaluate and figure out the best ways to practice what we were given. If it is illegal in the country, in the civil code where you are dwelling, you cannot practice polygamy. You can't do it equally, because one wife will be legal and the other is illegal, and that is not treating them equally or fairly. And this is one of the stipulations in the Quran. And though there is some controversy about it, the majority of scholars and imams will agree taking a second wife in a society where it's illegal is un-Islamic, right? If you wish to practice it, find a country that it is legal in and move there if it's that important. And there's also this line of thinking that a woman should just have sabr, should have patience, and that it's like her having multiple children and loving them equally. There's always this comparison made, and it always drives me nuts because it's a terrible comparison. I mean, men do not birth their wives. The bond is completely different, and the love is completely different, as it should be. And women are never scolded or warned in the Quran about teaching their children equally, right? But we do have men, just so you are aware, these hadith that you should really reflect upon if you're considering polygamy. I have not left a trial after me more harmful to men than women. And if a man has two wives and he is not just between them, he will come on the day of resurrection with one of his sides collapsed. So this is your warning, right? This is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, trying to lead you to the water to drink. He is giving you the warning that, this is no easy task, and perhaps monogamy is preferable in these cases. Now, I want to say that, again, polygamy is permissible in Islam, but there are specific reasons and circumstances that, while they do exist, they're not the majority these days. We're not in a post-war society. Women, for the most part, can move around, and marriage isn't as integral to her life. It doesn't prevent her from things like it used to. So while it's permissible, and I'm not saying it's wrong or it can't be done beautifully, however, it needs to be done in an honest and open way. So you should have a discussion with your first wife. I would go a step further and say she should probably be the one who is suggesting it to you, to have the most tranquility in the practice. But, I understand that this wouldn't be preferable for a lot of women. So if it's something that you have a valid reason to pursue, you do need to sit down with your first wife and get her on board, or at least comfortable, or at least tell her, right? Because we're told in Islam that honesty is one of the biggest things, and it's dishonest to take a second wife without telling your first. If you're looking to follow a Sunnah, monogamy is a beautiful one too. Always wishing you what is better. Assalamu alaikum.